In the early hours of June 5th, the peaceful morning in Tver was shattered by grim news. Dasha Stepanova, the 15-year-old girl whose March 7th disappearance gripped the community, has been found deceased in a nearby forest, an ending that has left the entire city heartbroken. On the morning of June 5th, the city of Tver was shaken by appalling news. Dasha Stepanova, a 15-year-old girl who had been missing since March 7th, was found lifeless in the Staritsky District. The entire city had tirelessly searched for Dasha, who vanished mysteriously from the Khiminstityt settlement. Her remains, found in a wooded area, were skeletal, indicating that she had already passed away during the search efforts by the police, investigators, volunteers, and local citizens. Dasha was last seen in the evening hours of March 7th. Around 5 p.m., she bid farewell to a friend on Tragically Street and headed towards her home in the Khiminstityt settlement. She was last sighted at the Universal store. Shortly prior, Dasha had purchased a holiday gift for her mother, but she tragically never reached home. From that day forward, extensive searches were conducted every day across all districts of Tver and the surrounding area. The search efforts eventually expanded to central Russia. Volunteers from Moscow and the Moscow region, Nizhny Novgorod, Penza, Kursk, Murmansk, and other Russian cities joined to spread missing person flyers. Dasha, or rather glimpses of her, briefly appeared on the security camera footage of a bank she passed by. During that last day, Dasha called her mother at 17:43, but the call went unanswered. When her mother returned the call, Dasha did not respond and would not answer again. By 8 p.m., her phone was switched off, and at 21:40, a text message from Dasha's phone stated, "I'm at a cafe," after which the phone remained inactive. It seems that shortly after her call to her mother, between 17:44 and 6 p.m., Dasha fell into the hands of criminals. The investigative committee opened a criminal case concerning the young girl's disappearance. Nikolai Banko, deputy director of the Moscow Interregional Investigative Department of Tver, highlighted that Darya's sudden disappearance, coupled with her age and lack of intention to leave for an extended period, suggested potential foul play related to a life-threatening crime. Experienced forensic experts from the Main Directorate of Criminalistics, the Investigative Committee of the Russian Federation, and the operational staff of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia were all involved in the investigation. For 3 months, investigative committee employees, local police officers and detectives, canine units, emergency services, divers, volunteers, and residents combed the area, searching for Darya. The investigative committee stated that during the investigation, witness testimonies were analyzed to construct a possible pathway for the girl through the Khiminstityt settlement. The settlement and its vicinity, including abandoned buildings, houses, attics, basements, sewer manholes, wells, groves, and riverbanks, were thoroughly inspected. Residents were questioned, but hopes of finding Darya alive dwindled until June 4th. On that day, a joint investigative and operational group discovered the skeletal remains of the missing girl in the forest of the Staritsky District. A detailed examination of the site was conducted using state-of-the-art forensic technology. Police also reported the detention of suspects. Meticulously planned investigative and operational activities led to the identification of 3 suspects involved in the crime, 2 of whom had prior convictions for serious offenses. One was already in custody under suspicion for another crime. One accomplice pointed out the location of the girl's remains to the investigative team. The heartbreaking conclusion to the search for Dasha reverberated throughout Tver, provoking a torrent of emotion from the public. Many expressed a desire for harsh justice for those responsible. The Tver Regional Ombudsman for Children's Rights vented her emotions on social media. A mournful morning with the discovery of Darya Stepanova's remains. The crime is solved, but the pain is profound. Many had joined in the search, clinging to hope until the end. It's tragic to not act as the prosecutor in the court against these subhumans. Life in strict conditions without parole is the least I would seek to isolate them from society. I grieve and share the immense loss with the family of the innocently slain girl. In the days following, details of the case began to emerge. The initial suspicions were confirmed, and the criminal case was reclassified to reflect the gravity of the crime, indicating a calculated assault by a group, also involving desecration. This rewrite prioritizes a clear narrative structure to enhance engagement and ensure that the tragic story resonates with readers, presenting the details with care to maintain the dignity and respect for those involved. The case that gripped the city of Tver came to a chilling conclusion as details emerged about the individuals responsible for a young girl's demise. The suspects, two men born in 1983 and 1968, alongside a woman from 1979. All locals were detained, with previous convictions for serious offenses. The younger man had already been in custody since March on suspicions of another crime. In a macabre twist, it was the older male who led police to the girl's remains, discarded ruthlessly in a secluded forest area. Reports revealed that the victim's life was brutally extinguished in a bleak apartment at the Khiminstityt settlement. The harrowing tale unfolded as Tereshchatov callously threw away keys and deceitfully coaxed the girl, Darya, into the apartment. Upon her arrival, he committed his atrocious acts, leading to the decision to hide his crimes through murder. He then enlisted an acquaintance to transport the evidence under the guise of moving belongings. Simultaneously, his domestic partner, Svetlana Zabrueva, was present and later assisted in the gruesome act of dismembering and bagging the victim. Neighbors shockingly claimed to hear nothing of Darya's desperate cries for help during her ordeal, suggesting either an uncanny absence of residence or a collective fearful silence in reporting the criminals. The sorrowful farewell to Darya Stepanova took place on June 8, 2015, in Vasilyevo settlement, where over 100 mourners gathered for her last rites. Social media abounded with vehement calls for the reinstatement of the death penalty or harsher punishments as a corrective for Russian society following the tragedy. Tereshchatov and I had worked together. Zabrueva was unknown to me, confessed accused Vladimir Pachin. He called for help with moving items. The bags were laden with something horrific. During the trial, Pachin testified, grappling with the realization of what he had unwittingly transported. Pressed by a reporter on whether Tereshchatov had disclosed the contents in transit, he admitted his actions in carrying what was referred to as the contents out of the car. It was then he discovered the terrifying truth, with Tereshchatov threatening him to keep silent about the ordeal. "Why didn't you report to the police upon returning to Tver?" Pachin claimed the safety of his own family held him back, but ultimately guilt led him to volunteer information to authorities. Zabrueva faced her sentencing with unnerving calmness, receiving a 15-year sentence with additional time for a previous crime she had committed, including taking another individual's life, for which she had deceitfully delayed serving time through a faked pregnancy document. In contrast, a relative sense of freedom marked Pachin's court appearance, as he was only under a restricted travel order. Upon entering the courtroom, he expressed remorse and intent to apologize to Darya's kin. Meanwhile, security measures ensured Zabrueva's transfer directly into the courtroom, bypassing public areas through strategically placed stairways. A fine imposed on Pachin, though subsequently waived under amnesty, required him to compensate Darya's family for emotional distress, a sum set at 270,000 rubles. In a tragic postscript, Alexander Tereshchatov, accused of murder and assault, ended his life in custody before the legal procedures could conclude, leading to a cessation of the case against him. The victim's father questioned the leniency of charges against Pachin, likening it to offering assistance in disposing of bodies without facing consequences. No attempts at reconciliation or apologies reached the family through any channels, a fact that Darya's father, Vyacheslav Uvarov, accepted with heavy resignation, focusing instead on the unchangeable past and insufficient punishment bestowed by the justice system.